My name is Samantha, and I'm 32 years old. After 3 years of trying for a baby, I finally saw those 2 pink lines on the test. My husband Derek was thrilled until he wasn't. I never imagined the father of my child would push me down our hardwood stairs to test if my pregnancy was real. What haunts me most? My sister Megan standing in our doorway, laughing as I lay bleeding at the bottom of the stairs. If you can't trust family, who can you trust? Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories of survival and strength. I've always wanted children. As a pediatric nurse at Boston Memorial Hospital, I spent my days caring for little ones, knowing someday I'd have my own. That maternal instinct guided my career choice and much of my life planning. I met Derek Bailey at a hospital fundraising gala 5 years ago. I was 37 and working the event, while he was there representing his family's investment firm that donated generously to the children's wing. Derek was handsome in that classic way, tall with dark hair and the kind of confident smile that lights up a room. When he approached me at the dessert table and struck up a conversation about the hospital's new neonatal unit, I was immediately drawn to his intelligence and charm. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Derek took me to the finest restaurants in Boston, weekend trips to Cape Cod, and even surprised me with Broadway tickets in New York. After just 6 months, we were practically living together. And at the 1-year mark, he proposed during a sunset sail on the harbor. I said yes without hesitation. Derek came from old money. The Baileys had a sprawling estate in Brookline and a summer home in Nantucket. His father Howard was a stern, calculating man who had built their family investment firm into a powerhouse, while his mother Elaine was a socially connected woman who ran various charity boards. From the beginning, they were politely cool toward me. I wasn't from their social circle, and I sensed they had hoped their son would marry someone with a similar background and connections. "They'll warm up to you," Derek had assured me. "They're just protective." I believed him because I wanted to. My own family was much simpler. My parents were retired teachers living in a modest home in Cambridge. They embraced Derek immediately, relieved to see me settled with someone they perceived as stable and caring. Then there was my sister Megan. Megan was 2 years younger than me, but had always acted like we were in competition. Growing up, if I joined the school choir, she would too, and would practice relentlessly until she got the solo I wanted. When I was accepted to nursing school, she suddenly changed her business major to pre-med, though she dropped out after a year. This pattern continued into adulthood. Our relationship was complicated. We could have fun together at family gatherings, but there was always an undercurrent of rivalry. Megan had gone through a string of failed relationships and seemed to resent my marriage to Derek. She'd make subtle digs about how I had gotten lucky, or how Derek was too good to be true. If only I had recognized how prophetic those words would become. Derek and I tried for a baby immediately after marriage. We both wanted children and didn't see a reason to wait. My biological clock was ticking, and we were financially secure. But month after month, my period arrived with crushing regularity. After a year of trying naturally, we consulted fertility specialists. The tests showed nothing definitively wrong with either of us, just the frustrating diagnosis of unexplained infertility. We tried medication, tracking ovulation with military precision, and even underwent 2 rounds of intrauterine insemination, all without success. The strain began to show. Derek, used to achieving whatever he set his mind to, became increasingly frustrated. I suggested after our second failed IUI. "Not yet," Derek said firmly. "I want to try everything first." What he meant, though he didn't say it outright, was that he wanted a biological child, a Bailey heir. As we entered our 3rd year of trying, I noticed subtle changes in Derek. But I was so focused on our goal that I brushed them aside. I cut back my hours at the hospital, started yoga, changed my diet, anything that might increase our chances. Meanwhile, naively believing this meant my family was bonding. "Derek's so patient with all this baby stuff," Megan commented once. Most men would have given up by now. The statement felt loaded, but I thanked her, not wanting to read too much into it. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags waving violently in front of me. After 36 months of disappointment, I had almost given up hope. Derek and I had scheduled a consultation to discuss in vitro fertilization, our last resort before considering adoption. The procedure would strain our finances, as Derek's parents had made it clear they wouldn't help with optional medical procedures, as Howard had callously called it. The week before our appointment, I felt different. My breasts were tender, I felt queasy in the mornings, and I was exhausted beyond my normal fatigue. I didn't want to get my hopes up, but after 3 years of monitoring every bodily change, I knew something was different. I bought a pregnancy test on my way home from work, my heart racing as I paid at the pharmacy. At home, I locked myself in the bathroom, hands shaking as I followed the familiar procedure. I placed the test on the counter and waited, refusing to stare at it for the full 3 minutes. When I finally looked down, I gasped. 2 pink lines, clear as day. I took 3 more tests that evening, all positive. Tears streamed down my face as I sat on the edge of the bathtub, a mixture of disbelief, joy, and terror washing over me. After so many disappointments, part of me was afraid to believe it was real. I wanted to make the announcement special for Derek. The next day, I left work early and prepared his favorite meal, steak with roasted potatoes and asparagus. I bought a bottle of his favorite Cabernet, which I wouldn't be drinking, and a small pair of baby booties that I placed in a gift box on his plate. When Derek came home, he noticed the set table and raised an eyebrow. "What's the occasion?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Just felt like doing something nice," I replied, fighting to keep the secret a few minutes longer, my camera ready to capture his reaction. Derek lifted the lid and stared at the tiny white booties. For several seconds he didn't speak, just stared at them with an unreadable expression. Then, slowly, his face transformed with a smile so bright it made my heart soar. "Sam, are we?" he stammered. I nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I'm pregnant, Derek. We're having a baby." He leaped from his chair, rushing to my side of the table and lifting me into his arms. He spun me around, laughing and crying at the same time. "We did it. We actually did it," he kept repeating, kissing my face between words. That night we lay in bed making plans, discussing baby names, how to decorate the nursery, whether we thought it was a boy or girl. Derek placed his hand on my still flat stomach with a reverence that made me fall in love with him all over again. The next day we called our families. My parents were ecstatic, my mother crying with joy and immediately making plans to knit baby blankets. Derek's parents were more reserved in their congratulations, though Elaine did say she would have her assistant send over some family heirlooms for the baby. When we called Megan, her response was odd. "Wow, that's unexpected," she said after a pause. "Congratulations, I guess. Are you sure it's not a false positive?" "I took 4 tests," I replied, hurt by her reaction. "Well, sometimes those things aren't accurate," she continued. "Maybe wait until you see a doctor before getting too excited." Derek took the phone from me. "We're sure, Megan. We'll keep you updated." He hung up and kissed my forehead. "Don't mind her. She's probably just surprised." 2 days later, we had our first prenatal appointment. Hearing our baby's heartbeat for the first time was magical, a rapid, strong rhythm that the doctor assured us was perfect. The ultrasound showed a tiny bean-shaped figure that the doctor estimated to be about 7 weeks along. "Everything looks great," the doctor said, printing out the ultrasound images for us. "Congratulations to you both." In the car afterward, I couldn't stop staring at the grainy black and white image. "I can't believe this is real," I said. Derek smiled and squeezed my hand, but something in his expression had changed. It was subtle, a tightness around his eyes, a slight furrow in his brow. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing," he said quickly. "Just processing everything. It's a big change." I attributed his reaction to the overwhelming reality of impending parenthood. After all, we had waited so long for this miracle. That evening, when I mentioned calling a contractor about converting the guest room into a nursery, Derek changed the subject. When I brought up starting a baby registry, he suggested waiting until we were further along. Reasonable suggestions, I thought, not wanting to read too much into them. But that night, I woke to find Derek's side of the bed empty. Padding downstairs, I found him on his laptop in the dark kitchen. He closed it quickly when he saw me. "Couldn't sleep," he explained. "Just catching up on some work." I nodded sleepily and returned to bed. It wasn't until weeks later that I would remember this moment and wonder what he had really been doing on that computer in the middle of the night. By week 10 of my pregnancy, the morning sickness hit full force. I spent most mornings hunched over the toilet before dragging myself to work. My body was changing in subtle ways. My breasts were swollen and tender. My sense of smell heightened to an almost unbearable degree, and I was exhausted by 8 p.m. every night. Derek began asking odd questions about my symptoms. Is nausea really that bad in the morning? He asked one day as I emerged pale and sweaty from the bathroom. Yes, it's called morning sickness for a reason, I replied, reaching for a saltine cracker. But some women don't get it at all. Right? He persisted. Everyone's pregnancy is different, I explained. Why are you asking? He shrugged. Just curious about what you're going through. At first I found his interest touching, but the questions continued, becoming more specific and skeptical. Should you be showing already? He asked at 12 weeks, eyeing my slightly rounded belly at breakfast. It's not really showing yet, I explained. It's mostly bloating at this stage. Right, he said, in a tone that implied he didn't believe me. One evening, I needed to check an email and Derek's laptop was closer than mine. When I opened it, the browser history showed multiple searches. Fake pregnancy symptoms. How to tell if someone is lying about being pregnant. Can ultrasounds be faked? My blood ran cold as I scrolled through page after page of similar searches. Why would Derek be researching this? Did he think I was lying about our miracle baby? I confronted him when he got home from work. I saw your searches, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Do you think I'm faking this pregnancy? Derek's face flushed with anger. Not embarrassment, but anger. You went through my computer. He deflected. I was checking an email. Answer my question, Derek. Do you think I'm making this up? He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd come to recognize as his tell when he was uncomfortable. You have to admit it's convenient timing. Just when we were about to try expensive IVF that my parents wouldn't help with, suddenly you're pregnant naturally. I stared at him in disbelief. Convenient? We've been trying for 3 years. And I'm the one puking my guts out every morning. Morning sickness can be faked, he said quietly. So can a lot of symptoms. Tears sprang to my eyes. Why would I fake something like this? What could I possibly gain? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, I noticed you've been texting Allison a lot. Is she helping you with this? Allison was my best friend and a fellow nurse. The implication that she would help me fake a pregnancy was absurd. I can't believe you, I whispered. I'm carrying your child and you're accusing me of lying. The tension in our home became unbearable. Derek began monitoring my eating habits, commenting if I didn't eat like a pregnant woman should. He questioned why I still had some coffee in the mornings, even though my doctor had assured me a small amount of caffeine was fine. Then I noticed Megan was visiting more frequently, often when Derek was home but I was just getting off work. Several times, I came home to find them in deep conversation that stopped abruptly when I entered the room. One evening, I returned from the grocery store earlier than expected and overheard them in the kitchen. I just find it strange, Megan was saying. Remember my friend Jacqueline? She was actually pregnant, and she couldn't keep anything down for months. Sam seems fine most of the time. She does eat normally when she thinks I'm not paying attention, Derek replied. I backed away, not wanting them to know I'd heard. My own husband and sister were conspiring behind my back, feeding each other suspicions about my pregnancy. I felt sick with betrayal. That night, I found an empty pregnancy test box in the bathroom trash, one I hadn't used. Derek had been going through the trash, looking at my used tests. The invasion of privacy made me shudder. The next day, I had a scheduled ultrasound appointment. When I reminded Derek, he made an excuse about an important meeting he couldn't reschedule. This is our baby's appointment, I said. You haven't missed one before. Business doesn't stop for personal matters, he replied coldly. I went alone, holding back tears as the technician showed me our baby's developing features, the spine, the tiny hands, the profile of what would become a face. The heartbeat was strong and steady. I asked for extra printouts of the ultrasound, naively thinking they might convince Derek. When I showed him the images that evening, he barely glanced at them. "These days, anyone can get ultrasound images," he said dismissively. My anxiety skyrocketed. I began having trouble sleeping, worrying about the stress affecting the baby. My blood pressure was elevated at my next appointment concerning my doctor. "Is everything okay at home, Samantha?" she asked gently. I couldn't bring myself to explain that my husband thought I was orchestrating an elaborate fake pregnancy. It sounded insane even in my head. "Just normal pregnancy stress," I lied. As I neared the end of my first trimester, I found Derek on a late-night phone call, speaking in hushed tones. "I know what you're saying," he whispered. At 16 weeks pregnant, I couldn't take the tension anymore. My baby bump was now clearly visible, not just bloating or my imagination. I had felt the first fluttering movements inside me, a sensation so intimate and miraculous that it brought me to tears. Yet Derek remained distant, treating me like a stranger he didn't trust in his home. One evening, after another silent dinner where Derek barely looked at me, I decided it was time for a real confrontation. I needed to understand what was happening to my marriage before my child was born into this hostile environment. "We need to talk," I said, clearing our plates. "And I mean really talk, Derek. Not deflect or make excuses or leave the room." Derek sighed and checked his watch. "I have some work to finish." "No," I interrupted firmly. "This can't wait. Our marriage is falling apart, and I need to understand why." Reluctantly, he sat back down. I took a deep breath and laid it all out. "You've been acting suspicious of me for weeks now. You're researching fake pregnancies, monitoring what I eat, checking my phone, and having secret conversations with my sister. I need you to tell me directly. Do you believe I'm pregnant with your child?" Derek's jaw tightened. "I want to believe it." "That's not an answer," I pressed. "Either you believe me or you don't." He slammed his hand on the table, making me jump. "How can I know for sure? You conveniently get pregnant right before an expensive procedure. You have mild symptoms that come and go. You could easily have gotten those ultrasound images from work. You're a nurse." For God's sake. The accusation stung like a physical blow. "So you think I'm orchestrating an elaborate hoax? To what end, Derek? What could I possibly gain from faking a pregnancy?" "Attention," he shot back. "Security. Making sure I don't leave you after 3 years of failing to conceive." "Failing to conceive?" I repeated, tears forming. Like it was my fault alone? "We were in this together, Derek. At least I thought we were." He scoffed. "Megan told me how you've always been jealous of her. How you always needed to be the center of attention in your family. She said you'd go to extreme lengths to keep the spotlight on you." A cold realization washed over me. So that's what this is about. Megan has been poisoning you against me. She opened my eyes. Derek said. Made me question things I was too blinded by love to see. "And what things are those?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger. "Like how convenient it is that you're the only one who feels the baby move. Or how you always seem to have a doctor's appointment when I'm busy at work. Or how you've been texting with Allison about belly padding for a work event. We were demonstrating proper seatbelt positioning for expectant mothers." "That wasn't for me," I explained. "It was for a demonstration at work. Have you been reading my text messages?" Derek didn't deny it. I needed to know the truth. The truth. I stood up, lifting my shirt to expose my rounded belly. "This is the truth, Derek. I am 16 weeks pregnant with your child. I've been throwing up every morning, my back aches constantly. I can't sleep because I can't get comfortable. And instead of supporting me, you're treating me like a criminal." "Anyone can stick out their stomach," he said coldly. Something inside me snapped. "Call my doctor right now," I demanded, grabbing my phone and pulling up her contact information. "Call her and ask her yourself if I'm pregnant." Derek hesitated, then shook his head. "She just cover for you. Patient confidentiality or whatever. I'll sign a release. I'll tell her she can share everything with you." I was shouting now, desperate to break through his wall of suspicion. "Documents can be falsified," he muttered. I stared at him, suddenly seeing a stranger where my husband should be. This paranoid, accusatory man wasn't the Derek I had married. Or maybe he was and I've been blind to it. Who told you to check my text messages? I asked quietly. Was it Megan? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I thought back to all the times Megan had undermined me throughout our lives. The science fair project she accidentally spilled water on the night before judging. The time she told my high school boyfriend I was cheating on him, causing our breakup. The job opportunity she sabotaged by giving me the wrong interview time. What exactly has Megan been telling you? I asked. Derek shifted uncomfortably. Just that you've always been dramatic. The sister who has sabotaged every important moment in my life? The one who's been single for years because she can't maintain a healthy relationship herself. She's concerned about you. Derek insisted. She thinks you need help. She's concerned about herself, I countered. She's always been jealous of what I have, and now she's trying to destroy my marriage. What's happening? I'll explain when I get there, I said, ending the call. Derek watched as I headed upstairs to pack a bag. You're leaving? Just like that? So you're running away instead of proving me wrong, he said, following me up the stairs. That seems convenient. I whirled around. I've shown you ultrasound pictures. I'll be at Allison's, I said, zipping up my bag. When you're ready to trust your wife and get excited about our baby, let me know. I had almost reached the top of the stairs when I heard Derek call my name. His tone had shifted from accusatory to something softer, almost regretful. Sam, wait, he said. Maybe we should talk more before you go. I turned, my suitcase in hand, to see him approaching with an expression I hadn't seen in weeks, vulnerable, uncertain. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the man I had married. I'm listening, I said cautiously. Derek reached for my free hand. I'm sorry for how I've been acting. It's just, this pregnancy was so unexpected after years of trying. I guess I was afraid to hope, you know? Afraid to believe something so good could actually happen for us. His words were what I had been longing to hear, but something felt off. His eyes didn't match his apologetic tone. They were calculating, watching my reaction carefully. I understand being afraid, I said. But accusing me of lying? Conspiring with my sister behind my back? Reading my private messages? That goes beyond fear, Derek. He stepped closer, now between me and the staircase. You're right. I've been horrible. Let me make it up to you. Come back downstairs and we'll really talk this through. I hesitated, torn between my desire to save my marriage and the warning bells clanging in my head. I think some time apart would still be good for us. I'll call you tomorrow after we've both had time to cool down. Derek's expression darkened. Before you go, I just need to know one thing, Sam. He placed his hand on my belly, the gesture intimate yet somehow threatening. This is really my baby, right? You're really pregnant. The question hit me like a slap. After everything, he was still questioning the basic truth of my pregnancy. I stepped back, shaking my head in disbelief. I can't do this anymore, I whispered, turning toward the stairs. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. As I turned away, Derek's hand shot out, firmly planting against my back. It wasn't a gentle touch, it was a deliberate push. The suitcase flew from my hand as I tried to grab the banister, but my fingers missed by inches. The first impact was my hip against the edge of a step, sending shooting pain through my side. For several seconds I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. When I finally managed to draw air into my lungs, I felt a warm wetness between my legs. Looking down in horror, I saw blood beginning to spread across my leggings. No, 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 I gasped, tears blurring my vision. Please God, no. Through my tears, I looked up to see Derek standing at the top of the stairs, followed by the front door opening. We never locked it during the day, a safety decision that now seemed foolish. Hello? Anyone home? Megan's voice called out cheerfully. I brought dinner. Then Megan did something I will never forget as long as I live. She laughed, a short, sharp sound that she quickly tried to cover with her hand. I guess we'll know if it was real now, won't we? She said, her eyes gleaming with a malice I couldn't comprehend. In that moment, through the fog of pain and fear, I understood the full extent of their betrayal. This wasn't just Derek's suspicion gone too far. This was a planned test. They had conspired to force the truth by putting my baby's life at risk. The realization must have shown on my face because Derek suddenly seemed to grasp the magnitude of what he'd done. His expression shifted from detachment to panic as he rushed down the stairs. "Sam, I didn't mean, I just wanted to see," he stammered, reaching for me. I shrank away from his touch, crying out in pain. "Don't touch me. Call an ambulance." Megan stood frozen, her smirk fading as she saw the amount of blood now pooling beneath me. "Derek, she's really bleeding," she said, her voice finally holding appropriate concern. Derek fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking as he dialed 911. I heard him giving our address, explaining that his pregnant wife had fallen down the stairs. "Fallen?" I choked out. "You pushed me." He covered the phone with his hand. "It was an accident, Sam. I just touched your back and you lost your balance." Even now, he was creating his defense, establishing his version of events. I turned away from him, focusing on my baby, praying that the tiny life inside me was still there, still fighting. "Please," I whispered, hands cradling my belly. "Please be okay." When my baby was safe, as they loaded me into the ambulance, I saw Allison's car pulling up. She must have decided to come check on me when I didn't arrive at her place. Her face contorted with horror as she saw the stretcher. "Sam," she cried, rushing forward. "What happened?" "She's coming with me," I told the paramedics, reaching for Allison's hand. "Not him." Derek started to protest, but the lead paramedic cut him off. "Sir, we need to move quickly. You can follow in your car." As the ambulance doors closed, the last thing I saw was Derek and Megan standing in our doorway, their conspiracy now exposed in the harsh light of its consequences. The emergency room was a blur of activity. Nurses and doctors swarmed around me, checking vitals, drawing blood, and most importantly, looking for my baby's heartbeat. "Please." The seconds of silence stretched into an eternity before a rapid whooshing sound filled the room. My baby's heartbeat, strong and steady despite the trauma. "There it is," the technician said, her smile genuine. "Your little one has a strong heartbeat." Tears of relief streamed down my face. Allison squeezed my hand, her own eyes wet. "The baby's holding on. But we're not out of the woods yet," the doctor explained. "You have some vaginal bleeding which could indicate placental abruption. That's when the placenta pulls away from the uterine wall. We need to monitor you closely." They admitted me to the high-risk maternity ward, hooking me up to machines that tracked both my vitals and the baby's. My body was a map of injuries: a sprained wrist, bruised hip, shoulder contusion, and multiple abrasions. But those were nothing compared to the fear of losing my child. A different kind of pain emerged when the doctor asked about my fall. "Mrs. Bailey, I noticed some bruising on your back that doesn't align with a typical stair fall," she said carefully. "Is there anything else you want to tell me about how you were injured?" I hesitated, the truth stuck in my throat. Allison stepped closer, her presence giving me strength. "My husband pushed me," I finally whispered. "He did it on purpose." The doctor's expression remained professional, but I saw the flash of anger in her eyes. "I'm going to call in our hospital social worker, if that's okay with you." I nodded, exhausted but resolute. The social worker, Sarah, arrived within the hour. The deliberate push that could have killed both me and my child. "This is a clear case of domestic violence," Sarah explained. "And because you're pregnant, the charges would be very serious. Would you like me to contact the police?" Again I nodded. "Yes. I want to report what happened." 2 police officers came to take my statement. I told them everything. One officer informed me, "Would you like us to speak with him now?" "Yes," I said. "And I don't want to see him." While the police questioned Derek, a nurse brought me paperwork for an emergency restraining order. My hand shook as I signed it, officially barring the father of my child from coming near me. Hours later, Allison returned from getting coffee to find me staring at the fetal monitor, watching the reassuring spikes of my baby's heartbeat. "Derek's been arrested," she said quietly. "How did I not see what they were capable of?" "This isn't your fault," she said firmly. "You trusted the people who were supposed to love you. That's not a mistake, that's being human." The next morning my parents arrived, their faces etched with worry and rage. My mother enveloped me in a gentle hug, careful of my injuries. "My baby," she whispered. "My poor baby." My father stood at the foot of the bed, uncharacteristically silent. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. I should have seen something was off about him. I should have protected you. No one could have predicted this, I assured him, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. There had been signs: Derek's controlling behavior, his quick temper, his close alliance with Megan. I had dismissed them, making excuses because I wanted our marriage to work. The hospital kept me for 3 days, monitoring the baby and making sure the bleeding had stopped. Each ultrasound showed my little fighter still hanging on, developing normally despite the trauma. Your baby is remarkably resilient, the obstetrician told me during a checkup. But I want you on modified bed rest for at least 2 weeks, and will need to monitor this pregnancy more closely going forward. On my last day in the hospital, I received 2 unexpected visitors, Derek's parents, Howard and Elaine Bailey. They entered my room with the stiff formality I had come to expect from them, but there was something different in their demeanor. Samantha, Elaine began, we want you to know that we had no idea what Derek was planning. Howard cleared his throat. We've raised our son to take responsibility for his actions, and we're deeply disturbed by what he's done. We want to help you in any way we can. I studied their faces, looking for any trace of the manipulation I'd experienced from Derek and Megan. Finding none, I nodded cautiously. Thank you for coming, I said. But I hope you understand that I can't have Derek in my life right now, or possibly ever. We understand, Elaine said. Our concern right now is for you and our grandchild. And he'll handle the divorce proceedings if that's what you decide. I took the card, surprised by their willingness to side with me over their son. Derek called us from jail, Howard explained, reading my expression. He admitted what he did. Said he let Megan convince him you were lying about the pregnancy. That doesn't excuse his actions, Elaine added quickly. Nothing could. I received word that the district attorney was charging Derek with domestic violence, assault on a pregnant woman, and attempted feticide. The potential prison sentence was substantial. The police were investigating text messages between her and Derek that might prove conspiracy. As Allison drove me to my parents' house, where I would be staying during my recovery, I felt hollowed out. My marriage was over. My relationship with my sister was irrevocably shattered. My body was bruised and battered. And yet, miraculously, my baby was still alive, still growing inside me. What happens now? I asked Allison, my hand resting on my belly. Now you heal, she said simply, and you focus on bringing that strong little baby into the world. Letting me know they were still there. I knew I would find the strength somewhere. The first week at my parents' house passed in a haze of doctor's appointments, phone calls with lawyers, and long periods of mandated rest. My body was healing slowly from the physical trauma, but the emotional wounds felt raw and exposed. Every time I closed my eyes, I relived the sensation of falling. The cold look in Derek's eyes, Megan's chilling laughter. My mother hovered constantly, bringing tea and snacks, adjusting pillows, and checking on me with such frequency that I finally had to ask for space. I'm not going to break, Mom, I told her gently. The doctor said light movement is actually good for me. I know. During my quieter moments, I would place my hands on my growing belly and whisper promises to my baby. Promises of safety, of love, of a life free from the kind of betrayal I had experienced. 2 weeks after the incident, I received an unexpected package. Inside was a check for a substantial amount of money and a letter from Howard and Elaine Bailey. This isn't about buying your forgiveness or protecting our family name, the letter read. This is about ensuring our grandchild has everything they need. We failed our son in ways we're only beginning to understand, but we won't fail this child. Should you allow us, we hope to be part of your baby's life someday. I set the letter aside, uncertain how to feel about their offer. On one hand, I appreciated their support. On the other, I wasn't ready to welcome any Baileys back into my life. Megan had been charged as an accessory after the fact for her failure to immediately report the incident and her misleading statements to police. The text messages between them had indeed revealed a conspiracy, not to harm me physically, they claimed, but to test the validity of my pregnancy. Even if that was true, which I doubt. They put your baby at risk, my lawyer explained during one of our meetings. That's not something the court will take lightly. As my belly grew more pronounced, I began the process of rebuilding my life. I found a small apartment not far from my parents, using part of the Bailey's money for the security deposit. I painted the second bedroom a soft sage green, gender-neutral and calming. I want to know if it's a boy or girl, I told Allison as we assembled a crib one afternoon. I've had enough surprises for one pregnancy. At my 20-week ultrasound, with Allison by my side instead of Derek, I learned I was having a daughter. The technician pointed out her perfect spine, her tiny fingers and toes, her strong heart beating steadily. Just like her mother. As my due date approached, the legal proceedings continued. Derek had ultimately accepted a plea deal, 3 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 18 months, plus 5 years of probation and mandatory counseling. Megan received probation and community service, plus a restraining order that prevented her from contacting me. My mother was outraged at what she perceived as lenient sentences. After what they did to you, they should throw away the key. But I had made peace with the outcome. 1 month before my due date, I received a letter from him, forwarded through my lawyer. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, he wrote. What I did was unforgivable. The thought that I could have killed our child haunts me every day. I listened to the prison counselor talk about jealousy and control issues, and I recognize myself in every example. I'm broken in ways I didn't understand. I don't expect to be part of our child's life, but I hope someday you can tell her that her father realized his mistakes and tried to become better. Not for me, but for her. I folded the letter and put it away, not ready to sort through my feelings about it. Perhaps someday I would share it with my daughter, but that day was far in the future. At 38 weeks pregnant, I went into labor. 16 hours later, cradling my newborn daughter in my arms, the trauma of the past months seemed to recede, if only temporarily. She was perfect, 7 pounds 3 ounces, with a dusting of dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold wisdom beyond her minutes on earth. "Hello, Lily," I whispered, the name I'd chosen for its symbolism of rebirth and renewal. We made it. My parents and Allison took turns holding her, their faces alight with the special joy that only a new life can bring. In the days and weeks that followed, I settled into motherhood with a fierce devotion that surprised even me. Every midnight feeding, every diaper change, every tiny milestone was precious because of how close we'd come to losing it all. 1 year after the incident, with Lily taking her first tentative steps across my living room floor, I sat down to write in the journal I'd been keeping since her birth, a record of our journey that I would share with her someday when she was old enough to understand. "Your first year has taught me more about strength than I ever thought possible," I wrote. "Not just my strength but yours. You were determined to be here, to survive against the odds. You've shown me that family isn't always about blood or names. It's about who stands beside you when the world feels like it's falling apart. It's about who helps you rebuild when everything you thought was solid crumbles beneath your feet." I watched Lily toddle toward her favorite stuffed elephant, her face a picture of determination. "Your grandparents who babysit every Tuesday so I can attend my therapy sessions. Allison who brings dinner every Sunday and never fails to make you giggle. My coworkers who created a schedule so I could return to nursing part-time. These are the people who make up our family now." I had decided, after much thought, to allow Howard and Elaine limited visits with Lily. They were not their son, and their unwavering support had proven their commitment to their granddaughter's well-being. As for Megan, I had received a lengthy apology letter 6 months after Lily's birth. Unlike Derek's letter, which had felt genuine in its remorse, Megan's rang hollow, full of excuses about her own insecurities and jealousies. I had not responded and had no plans to allow her back into our lives. Some wounds were too deep for healing. The doorbell rang, interrupting my writing. It was the photographer I'd hired for Lily's 1-year portraits. As I watched my daughter's face light up with curiosity at the camera equipment, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. We had survived. More than that, we were thriving. Later that evening, after Lily was asleep in her crib, I finished my journal entry, making excuses for behavior that should have set off alarms. But know this too. One person's betrayal doesn't mean everyone will betray you. Your heart can heal, can open again, building something beautiful from the ashes of what was lost. If there's one thing my journey has taught me, it's that true family protects, uplifts, and heals. If you've ever experienced betrayal from those who should have loved you most, know that you're not alone. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning a new chapter. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? What gave you the strength to keep going? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth is not determined by those who failed to see it.